Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 27, another 7 curious interesting things I saw last week, so let's crack on. So the first one is very curious, slightly sinister as well. So this is actually in San Leandro in the US, outside a courthouse which is hearing the trial of a police officer who's accused of shooting a man inside a Walmart store. So this is a protest outside and the protesters are filming the protest, and what you can actually see is the sheriff on the right hand side takes out his own mobile phone, starts playing Taylor Swift very loudly, and pops it back into his pocket and carries on, and then openly says that the reason I'm doing this, as you can see him doing here, the reason I'm doing this is that because it's got Taylor Swift playing in the background of your video clip, then it won't be able to be uploaded to YouTube because it will get taken down by copyright strike. So that is amazing. Worrying and a little sinister. Abuse of power, potentially, also. I've heard of this happening before and I heard of the theory of this, never actually seen it going on. So here is some video evidence of it going on. So yes, it is abusing power, but also it's using quite a lot of technology and the infrastructure of an entire industry to essentially stop free speech. So that's a curious way around it, quite inventive obviously, but also quite devious. So there you go, what a strange thing to do. Slightly lighter note, the Brickit app. So this is awesome. Now I'm not a Lego person, although there is some Lego behind me, don't let that fool you. I'm not the sort of person who endlessly makes Lego stuff. So if you are, then this is right up your street. So spread out all your Lego in front of you, download the Brickit app and it will scan all the pieces of Lego using computer vision and catalogue everything that you've got, and not only that, it will also figure out what you can make with the Lego you've got. So it has a load of pre-built models in its memory, and not only that, it will then give you all of the instructions to build those models as well. So that's great. One of the best parts of this, I thought, also is if you're looking for a certain part of your Lego, so you desperately need one of those little 4 squarey things, then it will tell you where those are as well. Point it at the pile, tell it what piece you need, and it will spot them and show you where they are. So yes, this is great for Lego, but you know, this is also great for looking at bits of plastic on the beach, or you know, basically rogue trees in a forest, or whatever you want to do. So this is just a really neat, practical, humble use of computer vision, rather than sort of, you know, death drones and all that sort of stuff that we normally hear about. So available on the App Store, I think only iOS at the moment, but what a great app, love that. DYSARTHRIA is something I've been looking at quite a lot this week for various reasons. Now, dysarthria is atypical speech patterns. So this could be due to an injury, for instance, or it could be something like a very mild stutter, or it could be something, maybe you have something like cerebral palsy, which severely affects your speech, enough for something like a voice assistant, or even a human in a shop, for instance, if you're trying to buy something, to maybe not understand what you're trying to say, to communicate. So there is a project out there that's been running for a fair few years, called the New Voice Project, which is trying to tackle this and give an option. So there is the VoiceIt app, which I was looking at this week. What this does is it learns from your atypical speech patterns and eventually figures out actually what you're trying to say, and then can say it clearly for a voice assistant or a human to understand. Now, as I was researching into this, it's actually been taken on and built into Amazon Alexa, which then led me to look at, well, what are the other platforms doing? Siri and Project Euphoria, for instance, in Google, are both there, but I think at the moment they're not really sort of, should we say, industrial strength or weaponized. So there is a project out there waiting to be connected with, which is the New Voice Project. And if this is the world that you live in and the world that you work in, then definitely have a look at this, sort of the accessibility of the voice assistant. So yeah, I thought it was really a nice project. Github have launched COPILOT, or at least it's a beta, it's a tech demo. You can sign up for this right now, and what does it do? It basically gives you a pair programming buddy. So pair programming is a relatively new concept in coding. Well, I say new, like it wasn't around 20 years ago new. I used to be a coder, and it was all me trying to figure it out on my own with a whole load of looking up stuff and Google. So what this now does is it allows you to type in the barest snippets of code, and it will say, look, okay, I think I know what you're trying to do here, I'm going to fill out the rest. So how does it know how to do this? Well, GitHub is a code repository. If you don't know what GitHub is, it's where you upload your code publicly and there are billions of lines of code uploaded to GitHub. There's probably millions of lines of code uploaded every day, so it's got a huge learning basically library to look at. So coding is relatively repetitive, so if you've done it, probably somebody else has done it before, and probably 100 people have done it before you as well. So knowing what your function needs to output or take as inputs probably has been done before by somebody. So it suggests what it might be and helps you out. So it can do all sorts of really good stuff. Not only can it just fill in auto code, but also you can do pseudo code as well. So even if you don't know how to write code, you can type in kind of take an image, find out the width of the image, output the width of the image into the terminal just as kind of pseudocode, and it will write that as actual code, etc., etc. So really interesting. Is AI taking over programming, or is it purely making you more awesome and helping you out? Discuss. But GitHub's Copilot sounds great. This is a patent. I haven't done a patent in a while, so this is Microsoft's patent for parental controls. Not potentially the most interesting or sexiest patent in the world, but I thought it was very interesting in that parental controls are usually relatively binary. Cut off the broadband at 6 o'clock. At the weekend, maybe open it up, and please don't let my child go to these sites or allow them to go to these sites. Whereas the Microsoft patent takes it in a far more context-driven and dynamic way. So this says not only, well, it depends, you know, if they've had 5 hours of video, then all of a sudden what they really need to do is 2 hours of homework, and then they're allowed an hour of social media at the end of that as a reward. So all those sorts of very intricate rules can actually be added to this. So I thought it was really quite interesting how it's context and genre specific as well. So it knows what social media is, it knows what homework is, rather than you having to basically manually try to do this for you. And it's not only that, because there are other platforms that can say please block gaming and please block social media. However, this is actually far more dynamic, and it can give you rules based on other rules. So I thought that was, if you are in the children's industry, then this is essentially trying to be an online nanny that learns like your family does rather than like a big corporate does. So there you go, very interesting. And predicting the future. This is kind of mind-boggling, but also super useful as well if you're devious. So this is a machine learning algorithm that's been trained on video footage, and it can predict what's about to happen next. So what's about to happen next? It says it's probably going to be a hug, and lo and behold, it is a hug. You might have gone, well, that's pretty obvious. Of course, it was going to be a hug. She's got her arms outstretched, but what's going to happen here? It's saying it's not going to be a hug. It's going to be a kiss. Lo and behold, a kiss happens. So it's seen this sort of setup before, it's seen what's gone before it, it's seen minutes before it, what's led up to this, and therefore it's going to know, well, actually, they're probably not met each other before, they're going to shake hands. So there's been a new version of an algorithm basically thrown at this, which is why this is newsworthy. Instead of basically just saying, let's see what's going on in the vision, it can actually use context beforehand and also know that it's unpredictable in the future and embrace that unpredictability to then predict. Sounds a bit strange, but that's how it's working. So why is this interesting? Well, it's interesting in as much as, well, if you're a sports commentator or a sports platform, you want to have a guess at what's going to go and happen next, then this could probably tell you that. Or probably also more if you're in, I guess, security, you could tell what's probably going to happen next if you're watching footage. So yeah, if you're in the betting industry, this might be something that you need to watch out for, because people can now have a guess real time what's going to happen in the next couple of minutes, maybe. So so that's interesting use of machine learning. And finally, this has been a law that's been bubbling around for about 3 years now. I think I first saw this in 2018 because it was applicable to motorcycles, and there was a lot of hoo-ha in the press about if you speed restrict a motorcycle going from 50 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour, because that's what the temporary speed limit is, and then you shut off the speed halfway through a corner, the motorcyclist will fall off. So it was seen as a danger, and lots of outspoken voices about that. Now I've noticed the latest version of it says cars, vans, trucks and buses, no motorcycles in there, so I don't know what's happened to that. However, what this means is there is provisional political agreement from all EU states that by 2022 all cars sold in Europe or in the EU have to have all of these fitted. So they have, for instance, vulnerable user detection. So when a pedestrian walks out, cyclist is there. They also have to have data logging, so a black box essentially, so they can then, if you do have an accident, they can look back at the data. Drowsiness and distraction monitoring, lane assistance, all sorts. They have to have reversing cameras, but also more importantly, they have to have a speed limiter on there as well. So it will use what modern cars do anyway, whether it's vision to look at speed signs or using GPS, drowsiness, distraction, all sorts of stuff. So that could be coming pretty soon. I think if your car does not have it, then I think there is also a sub-law that it needs to be retrofitted to be sold in the UK by 2024. So yeah, that might be a big thing coming your way, or it might fritter into nothing and be kicked down the road, quite frankly, excuse the pun, again. So there you go, quite interesting. So there you go, hopefully that was useful, and I will see you again next week.